really help them see the value of mindset coaching and how that can help them lose weight. And so I wanted to kind of brainstorm, kind of get everybody's thoughts and ideas, some things that you've come across, what's worked, what hasn't worked, and then see if we can kind of, I think we've gotten a couple, 1 or 2 cells. Tommy, where's Tommy? Tommy, you've gotten a cell on Drew Manning.
Yeah.
Has anyone else gotten a Drew Manning cell? So he's the first one. So I'm curious to see what worked on that call. Tommy, if you would mind sharing that.
Yeah, with that one, a lot of his pain was in other areas of his life, so it was just kind of going through consultation in other areas, and him recognizing that from the beginning when we set up the consultation that this is something that would help virtually every area of his life. So in terms of in relationships and emotionally, he was doing really well in his job and stuff, but just wasn't super, super happy. He'd still been having a hard time getting over this girlfriend from 4 years ago, and was kind of halfway with another girl. So there's he felt like his life was a mess, and so helping recognize all that. And he did have the fitness goals. He'd run some marathons before, but then he put on some weight, and he was trying to get back into that after an injury or something. So with that one, it helped that he was open to the idea of improving all these other different areas of his life. So, yeah.
Okay. So for you, it kind of naturally became more than just fitness, right?
Right.
So he kind of was already there as far as, I see how this is going to benefit all the other areas.
Yeah.
So I guess my question becomes, what about the people that are so fixated on, my goal is to lose weight, right? That's why I ordered the program, and they got these blinders on. How do you kind of take the blinders off and say, yes, this is a huge piece, and here's how it's going to help all these other areas as well? Somebody have a comment on that?
Well, I had a situation like that yesterday, and I'm no expert on this yet, but I think helping them realize the emotional toll that is taking on them, and then that's kind of the foot in the door. So I'm trying to think of what exactly happened with that lady. I lost my train of thought, but
yeah. Okay, it'll come back to you. Okay, so I wanted to brainstorm. So Drew Manning, if you've listened to his podcast, he says 90% of weight loss is mental. 90%. So I just wanted to ask some questions. What are some questions that we can ask people to get that coming from them, as opposed to, maybe we make the statement, Drew recently has said 90% of weight loss is mental. I mentioned this with, I think it was Tommy yesterday, that, here, the guy you bought the program from has told you that 90% of it is mental, yet you're spending 90% on the 10% and 10% on the 90%. You see the misbalance there? And if it is misbalanced, what's going to separate what you're doing now from the pattern you've exhibited in the past? So you might ask, have you done weight loss programs in the past? How has that worked out for you? Most probably the generic response is going to be well, I've done it for 2-3 months, and then I went back to my old habits. Why do you think that is? How is this time going to be different from the times in the past? If you continue to focus 90% of your efforts on what Drew Manning, the guy you bought the program from, tells you produces only 10% of the results, how is that going to change things for you? And just kind of let them talk through it. Let them start selling themselves. But I think those are some good questions that can open the gateway to help them see that, wow, yeah, I've got to do something different. I love the idea of incorporating somehow, maybe we can brainstorm as a team, some ideas and some questions into helping them see that this is more than weight loss. This is about your finances. This is about, weight loss is a piece of it, but we all know, Drew Manning said this the other day, and it's I said it all the time with money, it's I know people that are multimillionaires and miserable. They're unhappy, they're divorced, they're miserable relationships, they're miserable people. I know people with six packs that happen to be, he mentioned this, I know people with six packs that are miserable. So what's the underlying drive as to what's pushing them to be in shape? We have to uncover that. What's their ultimate motivation? Why? You want to lose weight, but why? There's something that they're lacking. There's some pain that they're feeling. And it's most likely, a lot of it's going to be around relationships, I believe. Not feeling fulfilled, not feeling good enough. They don't realize it, but we have to help them see that because we know what it is. I'm curious to see what your thoughts are on this topic.
I mean, are we kind of discussing in a way people's success in here with getting through to these?
Yeah, any ideas or thoughts you have?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, the blast is definitely a bit different than maybe what I think we're used to. I mean, not in a bad way or in a way that you can't get through it, but yeah, it's a different kind of thought process on the other end for them, because they're so focused on being able to get healthy somehow. So, I mean, I've had some pretty good conversations. Have you guys had good conversations where you at least are getting through to them? I think that, I've been able to relate Drew to the process, and and maybe you are trying to tap in for a minute or two and help them understand that he's got a consultation that also comes with it. Because there's kind of the formality bridge too, I feel like. Where just, hey, with your keto, he also has a consult for you. And the reason why he's doing this is ever since he's gone through his Fit to Fat to Fit, he's realized one important thing, and this is so much about mindset. Are you familiar with law of attraction? So I've been kind of going at it that way, just to get there, to see if they even understand that. Because if they can just start answering questions, I'd rather get them on my thought process anyway, right?
Yeah.
And then as soon as you get them into achieve today's set, because really the way Tommy's talking, he didn't achieve today's set, pretty much, didn't he? Relationships, money, finances, where are you at? Got him thinking about everything.
So what's the key, do you feel, to get them in that mindset where we can kind of bring them on our turf as opposed to playing on the keto turf?
So I start talking about, so I know what's worked for me is I say, are you familiar with the term yo-yo dieting? Oh, hell yeah. This has a lot to do with your mental focus. You probably have done good things, but then you gain the weight back again. Why is that? Well, what Drew's saying is it's your mindset, and that's why we're doing consults for this. So get them to think about, okay. Yeah, okay, that's what it is. And then if you can hook them on what's going on with the consult, then I think, again, it's what we do best is get into that anyway. But they've got to connect the dots right there. They've got to understand that they're not going to catch on to this.
Yeah.
And if they're watching anything about Drew, he talks a lot about what he learned. And if you start going back to him
as
and
life coach, he had a life coach.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He talks about how he knows it's all mental because he gained all that weight.
Mm-hmm.
And it's pretty neat what he describes.
Yeah.
And he wants to really help, and these people catch on to that. So I think if you can connect it that way, I've not gotten much further with the pro with any of them yet. But anyway, I don't know.
We've got a question for Tommy with your success there. Did you ask questions to tie in how their weight loss issues, problems, goals tied into money, relationship, finances?
Yeah, I did actually ask how that's affecting their life, what's affecting, because with, let's see, not with that guy, but I've had two other ones that have gone really far, where one guy, he was literally 400 pounds and just had no sense of confidence in himself. And even though he was financially well off, hopefully that one goes through, because he was ready to go through the final interview, but I don't know what happened. But recognizing what that has to do with all these other different areas of their life. And then asking, making the contrast. So how negatively is that affecting, and how negatively it'll continue to affect if they don't get better? What will be the positive effects in, other areas of your life? If you were to rate yourself out of 10, you had, the body of your dreams, you reached that ideal. How would that affect your, kind of confidence in your work and relationships and things like that?
Cool.
Or just how you feel emotionally?
Yeah, I feel like the powers in the questions with their own self-diagnosis, even if he is well off, if you could ask probing questions into what that could do if you were not eating so poorly with finances, or what other investments could you be using if you had more focus away from your weight and your dieting, could your investment portfolio grow? Have them kind of diagnose and work that out in their own brain.
I like that. So what I'm hearing Tommy doing is he's constantly reminding them and connecting the dots. How's your weight affecting money? How's your weight affecting relationships? How passionate do you feel with your relationship when you're overweight and tired at night? How not all that passionate to spend time with your wife, right? How has that impacted? And you just constantly bring it back to look at all these areas. Let's take a holistic approach of how weight is impacting it. And now let's look at what Drew said, 90% of all this, it's really not your weight. Your weight's just a symptom of the real problem that is your mindset and your emotional state. Because what, from Drew's own words, and I watched his podcast the other day, a huge part of why people hold weight is because they don't feel like they're worthy. And he said, you know what? I don't know how to overcome that. And I said, well, we do, because that's what we help people overcome every day, is that feeling of not being worthy. But it's that emotional buy-in of not feeling you're worth having a great body. And I don't think a lot of people are even conscious that that's why they're holding on to the weight. They just feel like, I don't know, I'm eating too many carbs, or I don't know. It's like there's a deeper reason. There's a self-hatred going on, or not feeling like you're worth it, or you're not good enough, or a fear of failure, or fear of success. And those deep-seated emotional beliefs are blocking you from having your breakthrough. And so sometimes just, have you noticed that in your life? Have you noticed that when you're in a low state, you typically you gain more weight? You typically, when you're not feeling good about yourself, you end up not working out as much. You find excuses and reasons not to do that. It's easier to eat the Twinkie than it is to eat the salad when you had a bad day. I mean, call them out on emotional eating. I mean, these are things that we definitely can help them with.
Going with, oh, sorry.
I was just thinking, one thing in the blast that I've noticed is a little bit different is a lot of these people tend to be in like the honeymoon phase of the diet, at least that I've talked to. So they're just super pumped that they're like, oh, I love this, you know, I'm feeling great, I've been doing it for like a week, I've been following it and all that. And so I found that to like transition into the consultation really quick, to go into like, what if, like, get into the pain, what have you done in the past, and are you wanting to really sustain it? Because I've just found that a lot of the people I talk to are just like super happy. They feel like they don't need to make a change. And it's like, okay, well, what have you done in the past? Like immediately getting to that, and then like, do you want to sustain it? Then going into the mindset of it, and then that usually opens them up enough, at least in my cases, to kind of then go into everything.
I like that. I like the word you used. I think calling them out as well. Say, right now in this moment, because of how good you feel, you are in what we call the honeymoon phase. This is where it's all good. You know, your wife, your husband can do no wrong in this phase. But then reality hits. Once the honeymoon phase is over and life hits and stress hits, how do you think that's going to impact your diet? So just call them back to reality. Tommy brought up something that a lot of people, when you're trying to build the vision, how many of you have gotten people that are kind of like this? Where they give you kind of short answers, and you can tell they're not really playing along. They're a bit guarded, right? And they're not really opening up to seeing the big picture. And so Tommy and I were brainstorming, and said, well, how do you overcome that when you notice that's happening? I think one, I don't think people are intentionally trying to do that. I think that a lot of people realistically do not or have not taken the time to create the vision. They just don't have one. And so they start spouting off just real generic generalities at you. How many of you have experienced that on the call? So you know what I'm talking about, okay? So how do you get someone to actually see what they could have without it necessarily coming from them? And I shared with Tommy a cool experiment they did with hooking a professional storyteller to an EEG machine. And he hooked up the whole audience to EEG machines. It had never been done before prior to this. And he just wanted to see how would people's brainwaves change when this gentleman started to tell a story. And what he noticed was really fascinating is the moment he started to tell a story, first of all, the brainwaves are all over the place, right? When he first started, he was just talking. Next thing, he started to tell a story, and the brainwaves all synced up as if it became one mind. One of the most effective ways that you can get someone to your way of thinking is to tell a quick story. So somebody goes, well, Adam, what kind of story would I tell? Well, it would start something like this. Hello, so client, let's say you kind of notice that they're giving you the standoffish kind of answers. They're not really playing the game, right? So this is a way to bypass the wall, the critical defenses that they have, and get right into the emotional side of the brain. I might say something like this. Can you imagine perhaps what it would feel like to be in your perfect body right now? Not only in your perfect body, and do you feel good physically, but spiritually, emotionally, you're at a peak state, and you are smiling. I mean, you got a smile so big it's like you ate a banana sideways. And you're walking along the beach, and you're noticing people are admiring you. And it feels good to be noticed. In fact, it feels absolutely amazing. So as you can feel the sand in between your toes, you look out and you see the waves come in, and this beautiful crystal clear water. And you realize in that moment, as you take a deep breath, and realize you have all the health in the world, you have all the money in the world, you have beautiful, passionate relationships. Life is good. Now, on the other hand, you imagine we take a realistic look at what you're doing right now. Because right now you're in the honeymoon phase, and you've been through this before. You've gotten excited about a diet, you've gotten excited about a program, only to be disillusioned and disheartened to find that it wasn't the Holy Grail and it didn't exactly work out the way you thought it would, because we didn't work on the mindset. So let's say we get into the yo-yo dieting. You do this for 60 to 90 days, you lose a little bit of weight, but little by little that weight starts to creep back in. Depression and low energy starts to creep back in. It starts to impact your relationships. You see yourself with a sad look on your face. Your appearance starts to go down. Your energy goes down. I wonder if you can really imagine what that would look like and that would feel like to you. Just kind of, you see what we're doing here? Mm-hmm. How many of you could kind of see in your mind, you kind of started creating pictures in your head?
Yeah.
Yes? Be honest. I sincerely want to know. Yes? Okay. Now, on the other hand, it can be a lot harder to say, okay, Marissa, what does that look like for you? And a lot of times they're going, well, I don't know, I've never really thought about that. So, anyway, just an idea of how to bypass that so you can still activate the visual cortex. Why do we want to activate the visual cortex?
Reptilian.
Okay, because you're influencing the reptilian mind. And by doing that, and the greater distance between the world of what if and the world of what is, what's the gap? What does that create? Contrast, which creates what? Emotion. Yeah. Imagine the movie Rudy. How many of you have seen the movie Rudy? Okay, I love that movie. And I want you to imagine that movie without any struggle. So just imagine the whole movie was them chanting Rudy and carrying him off the field. What would happen to that movie?
What a charmed life he lives.
Would it mean anything?
It'd be really short.
It'd be super short. First of all, it'd be super short. Notice in Rudy, that's a good point. 90% of Rudy is what? Is it the struggle or the victory? 90% of it is the struggle. And remember, think about this, the stories, I mean, we all work through stories, our minds work through stories, we feel emotion through stories and narrative. So the more you can build that story of pain and what it looks like, which should technically be 90% of your probe. I've had a change of heart after studying the science on this. I used to think you could do it. I know Rob and I have talked about this, how much of it should be pleasure versus pain. I used to think, well, you should, there are certain people that will buy based on building the positive vision, but most people won't act unless they feel the pain. So really 90% of your probe is building up what does life look like if you don't do this, if you continue the yo-yo diet. Other thoughts on how to interact with these
I
people?
have a question.
Yeah.
So I've been asking questions of, like, to kind of warm them up, to lead them into the blast
Yeah.
and into the mindset. And there are times when just right off the bat, you do get those people that are just short and, you know, this is, oh, I've just gained some weight since high school, and no, I'm happy with my job and I'm happy with all these things. Getting them to open up right at the beginning to connect with those emotions, because I've had a handful of people that, like, when I'm asking them these questions, if I know that this isn't the first time that they're dieting or they're recognizing their weight loss, they're just like completely closed off, and I don't know how to like reach through to those people.
So what types of things do you say? Maybe role play a little bit, and let's just see if we can crack the code. What would
Okay,
you say?
so I asked them about the program, or, you know, they purchased the program. I asked them how long they've been wanting to lose weight for, what they've done in the past, and, let's see, the other one is how is it or how much weight do they want to lose? How is it impacting them? And usually when I ask that question, it's all physical. They talk about that, you know, got blood pressure or high cholesterol. And then I ask them, well, is it having that weight on, is it taking an emotional toll on you? And, you know, they'll say yes, and I'll go into why. And then I can ask them about if they're familiar with your story. Only about half of them are. And lead into him in the mindset, limiting beliefs. But there's been people, and then going into the blast after that. But then there's been people, when I'm asking those questions, they're like, just very short. Oh, the only reason I've gained weight is because I'm not exercising, or I'm not doing this. And they really have those blinders on. And so just from the very beginning, I can understand like that story's awesome when you're a little bit further into it. But just right
Being
at the
able to
beginning.
get into it.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on that?
It was, oh, sorry, kind of the last thing you were saying I will dig in though into why, asking them, like, how long have you been trying to lose weight? Why hasn't that worked in the past? Because most of these people, this isn't the first thing that they've done, and I'm sure you've seen the same thing, that they've like been on diet after different thing that haven't worked. I mean, some people have had some success, but I'll try to recognize what are those, help them recognize and identify what were those patterns. If there was kind of emotional connection, or, you know, if they said it was just lack of motivation, or they just weren't making the time. And then I'll bring in like the 90-10%, because I've been using that. I'll say, what do you think that has to do with your past success or past failure? That's something that I think does help to kind of make that transition.
So you're getting them right up to kind of talking about that, but they seem to shut down and only see the physical. They're not really going to the how's that make you feel, where are you at with that. They kind of shut down around the emotions. I like that. As you know, Drew Manning says 90% is mental, 10% is what you're doing. So the question I have for you is, looking at your past history, based on, if you base this based on what you've done in the past, what do you feel your probability of success will be? Let them answer that. And then if they say, well, I mean, based on my past, I mean, it's probably not that good, but, you know, I'm doing something different now, and I'm doing this, and so, well, if it hasn't been that good, and you can see that it's not going to be good, does a possibility exist that there might be a piece that you're missing? That's a great question to ask. Does the possibility exist? Well, yeah, I guess it's possible. Well, if it's possible, and Drew would say it's actually probable, and if that's the case, is it something you'd be open and willing to explore to make sure that there's no blocks that are stopping you from having a successful go this time? And at that point, just kind of, and once they say, well, yeah, I'm open to that, okay, great. So as long as you're open, and what I ask is that you're just really open and honest, and we'll go through these questions, we'll see if there's anything holding you back, and if there's not, hey, you know what, at least you know by the time we're done with this. But if there is, we'll set up a game plan on how you can overcome that. But either way, at least you explored it, because are you familiar with the fact that 95% of all your behavior is unconscious? And if that's the case, does a possibility exist that you may be unconscious of what's really preventing you from having having long-term results with weight loss. And if Drew says it is, and the scientist says it is, do you feel like it's worth it to at least look into it and explore if there's something that's really holding you back? I mean, if they say no to that, it's like, okay,
Yeah. They don't wanna lose the weight at that point.
good luck.
Yeah.
You might not be that serious. I mean, that's okay.
I think if we look at Drew's story and why he did what he did,
Yeah.
you know, he wanted to put himself in a position where he could relate and understand what people were going through.
Yeah.
He was already, prior to that, extremely fit. He knew what to eat, he'd done all the other things, and yet he puts on all the weight, and now he's struggling. Why would the rest of the people think that it's gonna be any easier for them when you have someone like Drew that was an expert, that wound up coming to the ultimate conclusion that it really is mindset?
Yeah, 90%.
And all the techniques and everything else, they're helpful, but again, without the right mindset, they're not permanent, and
Mhm.
you give in.
Yeah. So it might be good to ask, do you feel, I mean, as far as the level of expertise, where do you feel you're at with your knowledge and understanding of keto versus Drew? You know, kind of let them match up with Drew toe to toe, and they're obviously most likely gonna say, well, I'm not anywhere near where Drew is. Okay, if that's the case, if Drew is asking or letting you know that 90% is mentality, is that something you're willing to at least explore and be open to? Yeah, okay, cool. Well, because if you keep doing the same thing, I mean, what's changing this time? I think that's a great question. What's changed this time versus all the times you've done diets in the past? Yo-yo diets in the past. I think that's a great word to use. What's really different? I mean, you've done low calorie, low carb, you've probably done things similar. So what's different this time?
I've had several family members and friends that have really tried to lose weight and have gone through all of this, and when I've watched them through either different programs or talked to them on a heart-to-heart level, and once I start asking questions about kind of their why those doors close, they don't want to hear it because it reminds them of the pain, the struggle. They're not worth it. They can't ever get there, and so they kind of go into this like hole and they close all the doors. Relating that to what Christian always says is ask for permission to be the guy that asks the hard questions. Like
Yeah.
you have to get a yes from them to
Yeah.
be that person. I think with this would be really important to ask at the beginning of the call for that permission, because when they go into that zone, they start closing the doors and throwing walls up. You already have the permission to blow through them.
Yeah, that's a great point. And this kind of goes back to what Rob had mentioned is with these leads, because a lot of these people, they are overweight, they might really be struggling with self-esteem and self-worth issues. So they already kind of feel beat up, right? And so I think coming in and just more than anything, wow, gosh, thank you so much for being courageous to face your emotions and face your demons on the phone call with me today. I want you to know that I honor you for that. I think that's phenomenal how open and honest you're being. I mean, almost preemptively strike, because you know you got to go there with them and you know it's going to be hard for them. So kind of really build them up so that they're feeling like, okay,
Yeah.
I can go there with you. I can feel safe. You're in a totally safe place. This is a non-judgmental place. This is a place for healing, and it's a place for you to really open up so that we can help you get the results you want. After all, that's why you signed up, right? That's why you become a part of this. And there may be some challenging, I might need to lift up the rug and shine a light on the cockroaches. Okay, and that part might not be comfortable, but it's what we have to do if we're going to get you to where you want to be. We have to let you know that you are loved and you're worthy of being loved.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I think a lot of that comes through in your tone of voice, really. Like if you really are compassionate and loving and you're in that space, a lot of people, I don't really ever have a hard time having people open up. Even front end, back end. And I don't know, I really do believe it's the belief you have in your mind. And it's like if I believe on the other end of the phone, it's like, well, I'm talking to some, person that's just overweight and struggling with low self-esteem. I don't think that's the right approach. I think what you approach it with, I'm speaking with a future Drew Manning.
Yeah.
And how cool is it that I get the opportunity to speak with someone who's going to go out and impact someone's life? It's a different mentality, different level of respect for the person.
Yeah, so I had an interesting one the other day. This lady just wanted to lose like 20 pounds, and she said she only gained it because she was injured. And so I kind of questioned some other areas of her life as well, and she just acted like she was satisfied with everything. So I didn't really know how to approach it when weight loss wasn't a super, heavy thing on her. Just to know how to approach that. So.
I mean, I can say I've been injured plenty of times. I've never gained weight from it. So I think that pounding down that excuse.
Yeah. So she was kind of in a space of, I'm good,
Mhm.
that kind of mentality.
Mhm.
I always like to say, when they give me 10s, I say, this coaching program's really about resetting your version of 10 to your new 1. And then we're gonna work back to a whole nother level of 10. Because the possibility exists that there is a higher level than where you're at right now. While it's good, remember the greatest obstacle to greatness is goodness. And are you letting being good get in the way of being great? And I like to do the thumb exercise. Some of you have done that with me, right? If you could do that on the phone, that's a real fun example that you can give people that just shows them that they are limiting themselves. They are stopping themselves from their true potential. Everybody does it. We all think we're doing the best we can, but there really is a next level for all of us.
As an athlete, I've injured myself hundreds of times, and a little key to a door there that you could explore is when someone's injured themselves, they've made a mistake, they've failed at something. And for me, when like doing a certain trick on a snowboard or bike, it created some self-doubt. I've replayed my failures over and over in my head. Why did I get injured? My equipment probably failed. It wasn't me. And there's a thought process that if, depending on the injury and how they sustain that injury, there can be a lot of self-doubt or limiting beliefs around their competence, skill level, that you could, by asking the right questions, open that door pretty easy.
Yeah, it's helping them realize that, look, being injured's not your fault.
Yeah.
Okay? It's sometimes those things happen, accidents happen. But where you're at right now, being overweight, I like to kind of take it, in a way, take the pressure of responsibility off, but then put it back on.
Yeah.
And a good way to say that is, it may not be your fault. You were abused, you had challenges come up, you're holding a lot of excess weight, you have a low self-esteem because of that. Those things are not your fault, but it sure as heck is your responsibility to fix it. Okay? Your circumstances often are not your fault, but it is your responsibility to fix it. It's everybody in this room's responsibility to fix the circumstances you've been dealt. Doesn't mean it your fault, what's happened to you. But right now in this moment, because you have the ability to make a choice, it is your responsibility to fix it.
Reminds me of that quote, pain is inevitable, but suffering is a choice.
Yeah.
I don't know, Jaden, whose quote was that? He told me the other day. Jaden. Oh, it's Jaden, one of our friends, yeah.
Okay. If you, any other thoughts? I'm just gonna ask one last thing. Okay. If you were to make it the best week of your life this week, how would you show up, and what would you do? If you were to make this a phenomenal week, and really accept the idea, I'm gonna share something with you that I really relearned and rediscovered and maybe went deeper this week, is that, have you ever thought of yourself as belief? If you became belief itself, as opposed to just believing, oh, I believe that's going to happen, but you realize you are belief. It's who you are. You are the belief. How would that change the way you showed up this week if you really owned that belief is you? And what you choose to believe is what's going to show up this week. Anybody feeling the power of that?
Yeah.
Okay. That hit me big time this week. I was like, wow. And it came from the ancient wisdom, be believing. Be believing. Be If I told you to be angry, you'd know what to do, right? You'd be angry. But if I told you to be believing, do you know how to do that? That means you have zero doubt in your mind. You become belief itself. And where there's belief, there can be no doubt and fear. I believe we can create miracles and move mountains in massive, beautiful, amazing ways. But it's going to take letting go of the doubt and the fear. And when you're on that phone with that person, you're speaking to Drew Manning. You're speaking to someone that's going to make a massive difference, not only in their life, but the example they're going to set for everybody that's going to see that example. That gives me the chills. That's like, man, what an opportunity you have to help save someone's life, heal someone's life. And I'm just, that's what gets me excited about coaching. That's why I love what I do. And I'm grateful for each of you. You guys are, I mean, you guys inspire me, really. You guys really do. You guys inspire me because I just see so many of you out there grinding and you're working so hard, and the desire that you have to be the best. That's inspiring. What a cool environment that I get to be a part of. So I appreciate your smiles. I appreciate the fist pounds that I do with each of you walk around. And I'm just excited because as a group, as a unit, we can grow and we can be those examples. You know, we can just rise up and create something beautiful together. So that's my challenge this week, is be thinking, if I became belief, don't just believe, but become it. How would that change the way I show up this week? Who's going to make it a great week this week? Okay. Who can feel that those numbers, you can see a number in your head and you know that's going on the board. There's no doubt in your mind. I'd always do that at the beginning of the week. I'd see the number, what I want to hit, and just know it with everything you got, no doubt. Buy into that. Just see how that changes things for you. Just experiment with it. What do you have to lose? Right? Nothing to lose by trying this out. Cool. All right, thanks guys.